President Sirisena meets with Australian Prime Minister Turnbull. 3 bilateral agreements signed between the two nations. Extreme weather causes flooding in several low-lying areas. Landslide warnings also issued. Is a sugarcane factory in Ridimalia the necessary? Brigadier accused of ordering to fire at civilians protesting in Watupaswala arrested. The passport of Shashi Veeravansa goes missing from court.
A very good evening to you and welcome to Primetime News, coming to you live and direct from the Newsfirst studios here in Colombo. I'm Krishan Devasagayam.
And I'm Arundhati Mutannaik. Let's look at the stories in detail now. President Maithripala Sirisena met with Australian Prime Minister Malcolm Turnbull on day 2 of his 3-day state visit to Australia today.
President Sirisena called on Prime Minister Turnbull at the Australian Parliament in Canberra this morning. Thereafter, the two heads of state held bilateral talks. During the meeting with the two leaders, Prime Minister Malcolm Turnbull praised the Sri Lankan government's efforts to strengthen the country's reconciliation process. Prime Minister Turnbull said he was also happy about the efforts undertaken to strengthen the democracy in Sri Lanka. The Australian Premier went on to note that democracy could be strengthened further through much-needed constitutional amendments, including the matter of decentralising power. President Maithripala Sirisena, in response, had extended an invitation to Prime Minister Malcolm Turnbull for a state visit to Sri Lanka. Following the bilateral talks, 3 agreements were inked between the two countries. A joint declaration on enhanced cooperation between Australia and Sri Lanka was signed by Australian Foreign Minister Julie Bishop and Deputy Minister of Foreign Affairs Dr. Harsha De Silva. A letter of intent on cooperation between Geoscience Australia and the Geological Survey and Mines Bureau of Sri Lanka was signed. The letter was signed by the CEO of Geoscience Australia, James Johansson, and Sri Lankan High Commissioner to Australia, Somasundaram Skandakumar. An MOU was also signed between the Australian Nuclear Science and Technology Organisation, or ANSTO, and the Sri Lanka Presidential Task Force for Prevention of Chronic Kidney Disease. The MOU was signed by ANSTO Chief Executive Officer Dr. Adrian Patterson and High Commissioner Somasundaram Skandakumar. President Maithripala Sirisena was thereafter hosted to a luncheon by the Governor-General of Australia, Sir Peter Crossgrove. President Sirisena was warmly welcomed at the Government House, where he was accorded a Guard of Honour and a 21-gun salute.
Now, as we all know, a number of districts, including Colombo, have been experiencing heavy showers since late last night. According to the Met Department, the highest rainfall was reported from the Balapitiya area.
The primary section of the Siddhartha Vidyalaya in Kolonnava was inundated today, making it impossible to carry out academic activities. A canal in the Vannavat area overflowed, inundating several houses in the area. The water gauge of the Kalini River at the Nagaland Street showed that the water level has increased to 3 meters this afternoon. The Department of Irrigation states that if the water level exceeds 4 meters, the Sedavatta, Vannavatta and Kolonnava areas could get inundated. Due to intermittent showers exceeding 100 millimeters in the Galle district, several lowlands were inundated. Nugaduwa, Dikkumura, Alpahala, Bogahagoda, Vihara Road, Agulugaha and Habaraduwa were the areas that were worst affected. Several houses in the Gonapinuwala Divisional Secretariat in Henagoda and Akkaravatta were also inundated due to heavy showers. Our correspondent in the area stated that 30 houses were damaged as the bund collapsed in the Alutwala area. Floods were reported from Baddegama and Mahagangoda roads in Ambalangoda. This was the situation at the Alutwala Fair. With the Ginganga overflowing, several places along the Alutwala-Ambalangoda road were inundated, hampering vehicular movement. A mudslide in the Akkuravatia mountain near the Southern Expressway damaged a house. The water gauge of the Ginganga was showing the water level at 3.8 meters this afternoon. The Irrigation Department stated that if the water levels increased to 4 meters, the lowlands on the banks of the river could be flooded. Several roads in the Mathar were also underwater this evening. The water gauge of the Nilwala river showed that the water level at 6 meters. If it goes beyond 8.5 meters, areas surrounding Thiyagoda, Uyanwatta, Sultanagoda could be flooded according to the irrigation department. Flow of traffic was hampered along the Matugama Kalawana main road as the road was inundated when the Muguruganga overflowed. The water meter on the Kaluganga in Kalutara read 2.4 meters. If the water level exceeds 3 meters, the irrigation department warned that flooding could occur. A tree collapsed onto a house in the Diuluwava area in Anuradhapura last night due to the inclement weather conditions. Several roads in the Ratnapura district were also inundated due to the heavy showers. The power supply to several areas in Kantale was disrupted due to the inclement weather conditions. Heavy mist was also reported in the Atampiti area in Badulla today.
Now, warnings of potential weather-related accidents and hazards were predicted by authorities today.
This rain will come, I think, for the next 2 or 3 days also, because according to the meteorological department forecasting, they are telling this rain will be spread over another 2 or 3 days. So because of that, I think there may be rock falls, cutting failures, and same time I think there may be some landslides also.
NBR have issued that landslide warning over Kalutara, Kegol, Ratnapura and Galle district over the possibility of landslides. People need to be very vigilant, be alert on the possibility of landslide if rain continued in next 24 hours. 117 call center number is completely open in the disaster management center, so people can access in 24 hours time, and if there is any signs of the landslide, people need to take all the actions, and all the communications are free of charge in 117 call center number.
A debate arose in Parliament today with regard to the proposed sugar factory to be constructed in the Ridimaliadda area in Mahiyangane.
Approval for this was gained after the former president and cabinet ministers threatened the officials involved. Now, are you trying to take this forward? This land is located between the Nilgala Reserve and the Madru Oya Reserve. Udavalave provides water for Sevanagala and the Kantale tank provides water for Kantale. Where are you going to get the water for this project? According to reports, the factory alone requires a total of 2.83 million litres of water on a daily basis.
We only require 10% of that water because it will be recycled.
So you won't require 2.83 million litres every day. You need that amount for the start. I will not accept what the company says because the harm that is caused is greater than that. I have your old stories with me here as well. I will reveal that too. When an opposition MP becomes a minister, we can say to which side they will speak for. He earlier said that even my dog wouldn't cross over. The dog is at home, but he is on the other side. You say that 89% of this company is owned by a Singaporean entity. 10% is owned by a Sri Lankan company which has been linked to such bad moves, and 1% to the Mahavali Authority. However, there are other reports disputing these numbers. Lands have been set aside in Kantale for sugarcane plantations. There is a factory which has been derelict for decades.
There were a number of projects that were created, but we could not implement them.
There was a Chinese company that came to restart the Kantale sugar factory. Their first question was, how much does the minister want?
We are one of the countries that consume the most amount of sugar. We eat the most amount of rice, chilies and coconut. That is why the government is interested in purchasing such plantations. We wanted to cut down on the foreign exchange going out because of this. What we call for is corn, not sugarcane. The farmers in the area depend on corn. We will get the opportunity to bring in investors who are interested in corn. Let me be clear, the people in this area have no objection. In 2006 and several other occasions, lands were given away in this manner and various policies were implemented. What we hoped through a new government was a policy of national development. I believe that this project is against this concept of national development. They say the investment is $150 million. However, we can create such a sugar plant with $35 to $40 million. This has happened before, where a foreign company comes here, obtains loans from our banks, dumps a pile of steel, and then disappears with a profit. We need to be aware of this. We need to encourage local industrialists. As the primary industries minister, I should state that sugar production has to come under my purview.
The decision taken by the Committee on Public Finance to temporarily suspend the supplementary estimate to purchase vehicles for ministers was taken up for debate in Parliament today.
I made this request from the ministers here as a favour for themselves, because when the funds for a supplementary estimate are allocated, another supplementary estimate is submitted for the next year under the same name, saying vehicles were not purchased that year.
As usual, you are always trying to give the wrong impression to Parliament. These vehicles are being purchased for the use of the ministries. These vehicles are not being purchased for the minister. They are for the ministries. Why do you always mislead Parliament like this?
What the MP pointed out in this report was that vehicles are to be purchased for the members and heads of the Constitutional Council as well. This is a very serious matter and there should be an explanation. If MP Vikramaratne can explain, please do. There is no mention of a vehicle being purchased for you, is there?
It appears as if vehicles are being purchased for ministers, but they are being bought for ministries.
There is a concern in Parliament and the country alike over the purchasing of vehicles for ministers, so there is no need to panic about that. But the issue here is that a steering committee has been appointed to draft a constitution and vehicles are being purchased for certain members of this committee, apparently for their duties. What is this? So a vehicle is given for his position as an MP and another vehicle since he is a member of this committee. This is the question we are asking. So where do we draw the line here? The government provides each cabinet, deputy and state minister with an official vehicle and 2 other vehicles as well as a vehicle permit. In addition, vehicles are also provided to the personal secretary, media secretary, the 2 coordinating secretaries and public relations officer of every minister. Despite such privileges, it was revealed recently that 92 MPs had sold their tax-free vehicle permits to other parties.
The government has incurred a loss of over 3 billion rupees through this fraud, so the people of this country lose over 7 billion rupees of their tax income. Why has it fallen to this situation? The people of this country sometimes do not even have a meal to eat. This is actually a massive fraud and at the same time one that is done quite blatantly. Another vehicle has been purchased for their personal use using public funds. This confirms that this is a state-sponsored tax fraud.
Meanwhile, a cabinet paper put forward by the Finance Ministry on the 11th of July 2016 to purchase vehicles under 2 categories for the political authority was passed. A sum of 35 million rupees was allocated for a vehicle each for the Speaker, Deputy Speaker, Cabinet Ministers, Opposition Leader, Provincial Governors, Provincial Chief Ministers, State Ministers and Deputy Ministers. A sum of 28 million rupees was allocated for a vehicle each for Provincial Council Ministers, Provincial Council Chairpersons and Deputy Chairpersons. The prices mentioned above are inclusive of taxes and other fees. A request made by Cabinet to increase the maximum price of a vehicle by 8 million rupees and to provide funds for only 1 vehicle for a Cabinet, State or Deputy Minister this year was approved. Vehicles are being purchased for ministers and MPs in such extravagant fashion, while several luxury vehicles worth millions are left to corrode at the old Speaker's official residence or Mumtaz Mahal. Obtaining money to purchase vehicles through special estimates is not a good example because people are struggling under the weight of heavy taxes. We feel that taxpayer money is being used in a haphazard manner in order to win over the deputy ministers and ministers. This is similar to a bribe. If a minister has an extra vehicle, then handing it over to the deputy minister for his use is not something wrong. Purchasing vehicles worth 30 or 40 million rupees only appeases their mental shortcomings. This is a massive waste of state funds. These parliamentarians receive a permit. They then sell this permit. This too causes a loss to the state. The state has lost over 6 billion rupees just because of this. They then submit various cabinet papers and import more vehicles. This is a serious crime. We call on the government to immediately halt these activities. Meanwhile, there have been many instances in the past when ministers used Indian-manufactured motor vehicles instead of luxury cars.
This is not a cattle shed. This is a section of the Sinda Trimada Primary School in Kalpitia. Estimated cost to construct a building for the school, 3 million.
3 cabinet ministers assumed duties following the cabinet reshuffle.
Former Minister of Finance Ravi Konanayake was sworn in as the new Minister of Foreign Affairs following religious observances.
We cannot add colour to the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. We cannot divide it. We have now got the opportunity to consider the country as our mother and move forward with it. While moving forward, we can create a new country. We are obliged to protect the country when it comes to foreign affairs. Sri Lanka is a small country, but no matter how small it is, the world considers it as one sovereign nation. We should commit ourselves to safeguard the pride of our country. Our embassies are very weak. A large portion of our wealth is spent on these embassies, and that wealth is collected with the help of few foreign countries. This is like a white elephant. You cannot make any use of it. I hope that the minister will be able to paint this white elephant and get the work done.
Minister Mangala Samaraveera assumed duties at the Ministry of Finance today. Minister of Petroleum Resources Development Arjuna Ranatunga assumed duties at the Petroleum Corporation in Dematagoda.
Former Deputy Governor of the Central Bank, Dr. W.A. Vijayawardena, presented several suggestions on how the private sector could be the engine of growth for the economy. He was speaking at a Logistic Leaders Evening organised by the Chartered Institute of Logistics and Transport last evening.
I was very happy when the new Finance Minister announcing in Parliament yesterday that he considers the private sector as the engine of growth. But for him to make that engine move forward, he must actually take immediate action to deregulate the economy. So there is a requirement that he has to do. So it involves the state-owned enterprises will have to be, because there are lots of loss-making state-owned enterprises. Budget has to be reformed. Then the public sector has to be made more competitive and more efficient. Banking sector has to be reformed in order to maintain stability and without being a burden to taxpayers. Then most important thing is the policies should be consistent and should be transparent. And what we have is, we introduce a policy today, we take it out tomorrow. Then again we introduce the same policy day after tomorrow, and therefore there is no consistency. Private sector is completely confused, and also the foreign direct investors, they are also confused. So tax system should be made simple and predictable and also universal, because what has happened is people who pay taxes are paying. People who don't pay taxes, they are not paying at all. So it must be universal, it must be inclusive.
On to another one of our headline-making stories. The case pertaining to Vimal Veerawansa's wife, Shashi Veerawansa, over the charges of obtaining a passport by submitting fraudulent documents was taken up before Colombo Chief Magistrate Lal Ranasinghe Bandara today.
The said passport and the national identity card of Shashi Veerawansa had been placed under the custody of the Colombo Chief Magistrates Court following an order issued by the Magistrates Court. The Solicitor General informed court that a special investigation must be carried out in this regard, since the misplacement of 2 court items that are important directly affects the proceedings of the case. Taking into consideration facts presented before court today, Colombo Chief Magistrate Lal Ranasinghe Bandara ordered the Registrar of the Colombo Chief Magistrate Court to produce the items before court immediately. The hearing of the case was postponed to the 31st of May. Will the documents of Vimal Veerawansa also be misplaced in this manner? Isn't the misplacement of such documents itself is a crime?
In yet another headline-making story this evening, a brigadier connected to the Ratupasula shooting was arrested today. Brigadier Anuradesha Priyagunavardhana was arrested by the CID today on charges of commanding the group of soldiers who opened fire against civilians in Ratupaswala Valley area. 3 people died while 33 others suffered injuries in the shooting. Among the deceased was a 14-year-old. According to the police, 3 members of the Sri Lanka Army have been arrested and remanded by the CID in connection to the shooting. The brigadier who was arrested today was placed in remand custody until the 31st of this month after being produced before court.
Housing loans were provided to 500 families in Kolonnawa today under the VCD loan scheme of the Ministry of Housing and Construction.
During the event held at the Kolonnawa Town Hall, Minister Sajith Premadasa and MP SM Marikar distributed loans worth 137 million rupees. It costs 8.5 billion rupees to repay the low-level road. This is a difficult task for even a minister and a deputy minister. I begged and pleaded with various officials in order to obtain this money. I'm glad to say that I overcame this challenge. We have done so much, but I haven't been able to even provide a single job for a UNPR. That is the truth. It was my father who established the Ministry of Buddha Sasana, not these cardboard heroes who make noise today. It was these cardboard Buddhists that forced our war heroes to recreate racetracks so that they can raise Lamborghinis in the shadow of the Temple of the Tooth Relic. They are trying to incite racism and creep into the presidential palace or temple trees. They don't care what happens to the country. All they care about is their comfort and their luxuries. Police informed court today that they are taking steps to arrest the General Secretary of the Bodubala Sena, Venerable Galabudatte Yanasara Thero.
The police informed that steps are being taken to arrest the terror based on several charges including obstructing the police, levelling threats and expressing hateful comments which create discord among communities. Based on a request extended by the police, the Hulstorf magistrate issued an order barring him from leaving the country. The police informed court that even though the terror was instructed to appear before the organised crime unit in order to record a statement on several complaints filed against him, the terror had ignored these summons. The police today issued a release stating that several police teams have been deployed to arrest Venerable Yanasara Thero.
Chairman of the Elections Commission Mahinda Deshapriya called for renewed efforts in increasing the participation of youth in the electoral process. Now, Deshapriya said the lack of political interest among the youth has become one of the key issues in the current political sphere.
Because the present youth are negative about politics and are frustrated as they feel the politicians ignore them. The overriding view is that politics was boring, corrupted and complicated, which did not act an incentive to become involved. Most of the youth, immaterial of their educational background, have lesser interest in voting. Election Commission of Sri Lanka believe that a significant weight must be directed at the national level of rising youth civic engagement and the significant gap which still exists due to the need in strengthening engagement of youth in voter education in a systematic manner.
Mahinda Deshapriya was speaking at the 14th International Electoral Affairs Symposium which commenced in Negombo this morning. Minister of Justice and Buddha Sasana Vijaydas Rajpaksha was also present for the event. The symposium, organised by the Elections Commission and the International Centre for Parliamentary Studies, is being attended by delegates of around 40 countries and is to conclude tomorrow.
A 3-day exhibition of traditional handicrafts and textiles titled India Sri Lanka Shilpakala commenced at the BMICH in Colombo today. Newsfirst is the electronic media partner of the exhibition.
The exhibition was graced by Speaker of Parliament Karu Jayasuriya.
This is in line with the thinking of the Indian leadership that all of us, particularly Sri Lanka and India, should grow together. We cannot prosper in isolation. Sri Lanka can also benefit at a global level by partnering with Resurgent India, including in the field of handicrafts. Partnership would help Sri Lanka market her products to a larger audience. India is a huge market for Sri Lankan handicraft products. As you are aware, India continues to be the largest source of tourists into Sri Lanka, accounting for almost 1/5 of all the tourist arrivals here. Efforts like Shilpakala would attract more tourists and strengthen our timeless links of history, religion, culture and people.
The exhibition, which will take place till the 28th of this month, was organized by the High Commission of India in Colombo.
As His Excellency said, there is a great revival in tourism. Apart from the Indian tourists, we are having a 17% growth in tourism in this country. So by developing the craftsmanship of our people, I am sure that will be a great source of income and a great source of employment. I have seen the massive development that has taken place in India in this field. Millions of people earn a livelihood, seek employment and get prosperity. And I hope with Excellencies and the Embassies support, we can take further steps to have mutual cooperation to strengthen this art so that both countries will benefit.
A seminar was organized this morning to look into the contemporary relationship between China and Sri Lanka and the future projections. Newsfirst was the media sponsor of the event.
The seminar was organized by the Bandaranaike Center for International Studies, the Embassy of People's Republic of China in Sri Lanka and the China Institute for International Studies.
Small countries are now the nodes of connectivity, right? So look at Qatar, look at Seychelles, look at Djibouti. Any of you, 5 years ago, did you know about Djibouti? Unless you are an avid fan of geography. But these small countries are becoming the nodes. Look at Estonia. So I think in that context, Sri Lanka has suddenly become a big radar signature in the Indian Ocean. Not just in the Indian Ocean, but in the grand, geopolitical plank of in the Pacific.
Sri Lanka, now in the world, you are a vital center and also vantage point, pivotal point for world's interconnectivity. And we are so fortunate to have Sri Lanka with its friendly people, with its sincerity, and as our neighbor. On our way here, our hosts were saying that, hey, this road, and we are appreciative because this was built by China. But as we were traveling here, in our heart, we are filled with so vast appreciation to you for the so many facets of help you have rendered us. United Nations, when China was relations with the rest of the world was at its low tides, you rendered us the most timely support and help.
The discussions revolved around challenges and prospects with regard to the relationship between the two countries, the priorities and trends at both countries, and the implications that follow. The panelists included former Ambassador to China Nihal Rodrigo, Professor Amal Rodrigo of the Kotalawala Defense University, Dr. Wan Yu-min, Director, Department of Developing Countries at the CIIS, George Cook from the BCIS, and Nin Shengyan from CIIS.
There is a shift in global economics. If you take the Indian Ocean, the number 2 economy in the world, China, number 3 economy in the world, Japan, and number 7 economy in the world, India, is here. And we are standing next to the number 7 economy in the world in the presence of number 2 and 3. So this gives a glimpse of the economic activities of the Indo-Asia Pacific region. And also rise of China and India is a major factor in the 21st century. And we all know the population is growing despite whatever the epidemics we have, despite the war we have, the population is growing. We need more, we need to produce more, and we need to trade more. That means we have to go to the ocean more. And therefore, the Indian Ocean has become a key trading ocean for trade, energy, and food security.
A memorandum of understanding was also signed between BCIS and CIIS last evening.
Well, that's a look at Primetime News for tonight. Thank you very much for joining us. I'm Arundhati Mudanayakan.
And I'm Krishan Devasagayam. Take care and good night.